Imagine this: someone challenges your opinion, attacks your character, or twists your words, and all around you, voices rise, hearts race, and emotions explode. Most people panic, yell, or freeze, but not you. Today, I'm going to show you how to stand your ground with calm clarity and unshakable confidence. How to listen, how to respond, how to use facts, logic, and boundaries to defend yourself without losing your composure or your power. By the end of this talk, arguments won't scare you. They'll reveal your strength. Mastering the art of staying calm under pressure is one of the most powerful skills you can develop in life, and it is absolutely essential when it comes to defending yourself in an argument. Think about it: when emotions flare, when voices rise, and when words are hurled like weapons, the person who loses control first often loses the argument, not because their points were weak, but because they allowed anger, frustration, or fear to dictate their response. Staying calm is not about suppressing your emotions or pretending you are unaffected. It is about understanding your emotions, recognizing the triggers that push you toward reactive behavior, and learning to respond with clarity and composure. This skill is both psychological and practical, and it starts with self-awareness. You have to know yourself well enough to recognize the first signs of agitation or stress, whether it's a quickened heartbeat, tense muscles, a rising voice, or racing thoughts, and consciously choose to slow down rather than let those signals control your behavior. The ability to pause, even for a few seconds, allows you to prevent knee-jerk reactions that often escalate conflicts and weaken your position. Staying calm also involves controlling your breathing, because your body's physiological state directly affects your mental state. Deep, measured breaths send a signal to your brain that you are safe and in control, even if the other person is attacking you verbally. This physiological control can give you the clarity to think critically and respond strategically rather than emotionally. Another crucial element is mindset. If you enter an argument believing it is a battle to win at all costs, your stress levels and emotional reactivity will skyrocket. But if you approach it with the mindset of expressing your truth, protecting your boundaries, or seeking understanding, the stakes become manageable, and your calmness becomes a natural extension of your purpose. Staying calm is also about detachment, not detachment from caring, but detachment from the need to be validated or to dominate. When you are not emotionally tied to proving yourself in a fight, you can observe the conversation with a level-headed perspective, identify logical flaws, and respond effectively. The more you practice emotional detachment, the more resilient you become to verbal attacks and provocations. This doesn't make you cold or unfeeling, it makes you strategic and focused. Communication style is directly impacted by calmness. People who stay composed in arguments often convey their points more persuasively because their words are measured, deliberate, and clear. A calm tone commands respect and attention, whereas a loud, angry, or defensive tone often triggers defensiveness in others and escalates conflict. Your body language also communicates calmness. Standing tall, making eye contact without glaring, maintaining an open posture, and avoiding aggressive gestures all reinforce the impression that you are in control. Calmness exudes confidence, and confidence alone can shift the dynamics of an argument. People instinctively listen more to those who project composure because calmness signals competence, credibility, and authority. Preparation plays a vital role in staying calm. If you anticipate common arguments or questions, you can mentally rehearse responses and reduce the anxiety of being caught off guard. Knowledge is a stabilizing factor. The more you know about the topic at hand, the less likely you are to panic or overact. Research, reflection, and clarity about your position provide a foundation that supports calmness. Additionally, practicing mindfulness or meditation regularly strengthens your ability to remain centered in stressful situations. These practices train your mind to notice thoughts and emotions without becoming entangled in them, which directly translates to the ability to remain calm during heated debates. Another technique involves reframing the situation. Instead of seeing an argument as an attack, view it as an opportunity to demonstrate your poise, to articulate your perspective, or to practice assertiveness. Shifting your perception reduces emotional intensity and increases control. Similarly, cultivating empathy helps. Understanding that the other person's anger, criticism, or hostility often reflects their own insecurities or struggles allows you to remain unshaken rather than taking their words personally. Staying calm is reinforced by self-respect and self-worth. When you know your value and are secure in your identity, external provocations have less power over you. In practice, staying calm under pressure requires consistent application. Start with small conflicts in everyday life, whether it's a disagreement with a friend, a debate at work, or a minor misunderstanding in a social setting. Notice how your body reacts and consciously apply techniques like deep breathing, pausing before responding, and choosing words carefully. Over time, your calmness becomes instinctive rather than forced. It's also essential to learn from experience. After a heated exchange, reflect on what helped you maintain composure and what caused lapses. Continuous self-evaluation strengthens your emotional control and enhances your ability to remain calm in more significant, high-stakes arguments. Another aspect is the power of silence. In many arguments, people feel pressured to respond immediately, but mastering calmness allows you to embrace silence strategically. A measured pause before responding not only gives you time to organize your thoughts, but also signals to the other person that you are confident, deliberate, and unshakable. Silence can be a tool to diffuse tension, redirect focus, or create space for rational dialogue. Coupled with calm body language and controlled tone, silence can be more persuasive than words, demonstrating that you are not controlled by emotion or haste. Developing calmness also involves setting mental boundaries. Remind yourself that staying calm does not mean tolerating abuse, disrespect, or manipulation. It means maintaining your composure while asserting your position firmly and respectfully. Recognizing when an argument is escalating beyond reason and choosing to disengage temporarily can prevent unnecessary conflict and protect your emotional state. This combination of composure, strategic thinking, and assertiveness is what allows you to defend yourself effectively without losing control. Ultimately, staying calm under pressure is a skill that transforms not just arguments but life itself. It enhances your decision-making, strengthens your relationships, improves your credibility, and reduces stress. It allows you to navigate challenges with grace, think clearly under scrutiny, and respond to attacks with intelligence rather than emotion. The person who masters calmness becomes unshakable, respected, and capable of defending themselves in any situation. They do not react, they respond. They do not escalate, they de-escalate. They do not surrender, they stand firm. The practice of calmness is continuous, requiring self-awareness, discipline, reflection, and intentionality, but the rewards are profound. It becomes a defining characteristic, a personal superpower that influences every interaction, every argument, and every challenge faced, creating a presence that commands respect, fosters understanding, and ensures that when confronted, one can defend oneself not only effectively but honorably, demonstrating strength not through volume or aggression, but through poise, clarity, and unwavering composure. Listening more than you speak is one of the most overlooked skills in arguments, yet it is one of the most powerful tools you can possess. Most people enter an argument with one goal in mind: to be heard, to assert their opinion, to defend themselves. They speak first, interrupt, and react impulsively, believing that the louder or faster they respond, the more valid their point becomes. But in reality, the true strength of defending yourself lies not in how well you speak, but in how well you listen. Listening is an act of power, a strategic choice that allows you to gather information, understand motives, and respond with precision rather than impulse. When you listen first, you gain insight into the other person's perspective, their logic, their weaknesses, and their emotional triggers. You learn what they value, what they fear, and where their arguments might crumble. Listening is not passive, it is an active engagement with the situation, a deliberate decision to absorb and process before reacting. It gives you control over the narrative because the more you understand, the more effectively you can shape your response. To truly listen, you must silence the voice inside your own head that is preparing what to say next. Most people think about their comeback, their defense, or their rebuttal while the other person is still speaking, and in doing so, they miss the nuances of what is being said. Listening requires presence. It requires being fully engaged in the moment, focusing on the words, tone, and body language of the other person. Every pause, every hesitation, every inflection in their voice carries meaning. These subtle cues often reveal more than the words themselves. Understanding these layers gives you the advantage because it allows you to address the root of the argument rather than just the surface issue. Empathy is a crucial part of listening. You don't have to agree with the other person, but you must strive to understand where they are coming from. People respond better when they feel heard, and even in heated arguments, acknowledging the other person's perspective can reduce defensiveness and open the door for a rational exchange. By validating their feelings or demonstrating that you understand their point, you create space for dialogue instead of confrontation. This does not mean conceding your position. It means recognizing the human element in the conversation. When someone feels understood, they are less likely to attack aggressively, which gives you the upper hand to respond thoughtfully. Listening more than you speak also allows you to detect logical fallacies, inconsistencies, or exaggerations in the other person's argument. When you are silent and attentive, you can map the argument structure, identify weak points, and prepare a response that is precise and impactful. This preparation happens in real time as you listen. It is an exercise of mental agility, observation, and strategic thinking. The longer you listen before responding, the more data you gather, and the more credible your response becomes. People who dominate conversations with constant talking often miss these opportunities, responding emotionally or reactively rather than logically. Another essential element is restraint. Many people feel the pressure to respond immediately, thinking silence is a sign of weakness or indecision. In truth, silence is a form of power when used correctly. Pausing to fully comprehend what is being said communicates confidence, thoughtfulness, and control. It signals to the other person that you are not rattled, that you are processing, and that your response will be measured and deliberate. This quiet strength often disarms aggressive interlocutors because it breaks the rhythm of escalation. They expect a reaction, but your calm listening creates an unexpected dynamic that shifts the conversation in your favor. Active listening also involves asking clarifying questions. When you don't understand something, rather than assuming or interrupting, ask for clarification. This shows that you are engaged and paying attention, but it also buys time to structure your thoughts. Questions can expose weaknesses in the other person's argument without you having to attack directly. For example, asking, "Can you explain what you mean by that?" Or, "How does that follow from what you said earlier?" forces the other person to articulate their points more clearly, and in doing so, they often reveal contradictions or gaps that you can address strategically. Listening with the intent to understand, rather than to reboot, positions you as the more composed and rational participant in the argument. Listening more than speaking is also about controlling your emotional responses. Arguments often trigger defensiveness, anger, or frustration, But when you focus on understanding, you shift the focus from emotional reaction to intellectual analysis. By separating emotion from content, you maintain composure and clarity. The more you practice listening first, the less likely you are to be swept away by provocation. Over time, this skill becomes instinctive. You no longer feel compelled to interrupt or react immediately because your default response is to assess, understand, and then reply. It is also important to understand that listening is not just about words, it is about context, tone, and nonverbal communication. The way something is said often reveals intention, urgency, or underlying tension. Observing gestures, facial expressions, and posture adds depth to your understanding and informs how you structure your response. A calm, attentive listener can detect sarcasm, fear, aggression, or uncertainty and use that information strategically. This level of awareness gives you an edge because you are not merely responding to words. You are responding to the person behind the words, which makes your argument more effective and persuasive. Developing this skill requires patience and practice. Start by listening more in everyday interactions. Focus fully on what the other person is saying, resist the urge to interject, and take mental notes. Reflect on the conversation afterward. What did you learn? What could you have missed? And how did your listening impact the outcome? This habitual practice strengthens your ability to listen effectively under pressure. The more you train your mind to prioritize understanding over reacting, the more natural it becomes in high-stakes situations. Listening more than speaking also enhances your credibility and respect. People are naturally drawn to those who make them feel heard. By allowing others to speak fully and acknowledging their perspective, you command respect even if you disagree. It demonstrates emotional intelligence, maturity, and confidence, qualities that are invaluable in any argument or debate. Your calm attentiveness signals that you are not easily provoked, that you value reason over emotion, and that your contributions are deliberate and meaningful. Finally, listening before speaking allows you to craft responses that are strategic and impactful. Rather than responding with the first thought that comes to mind, you can synthesize information, choose words carefully, and deliver points with maximum effect. Your responses become solutions, clarifications, or persuasive statements rather than reactive retorts. By listening deeply, you take control of the conversation, maintain composure, and ensure that your voice is both heard and respected. In any argument, emotions can feel powerful. They can ignite passion, compel action, and make us feel heard. But relying solely on emotion is a trap. Emotions are fleeting, subjective, and often cloud judgment, which is why facts and logic are the true weapons of someone who wants to defend themselves effectively. When you base your position on facts, research, and reasoning, you create a foundation that cannot easily be shaken by opinion, aggression, or manipulation. Logic is impartial, verifiable, and persuasive. Facts are concrete evidence that support your stance. Using them together transforms an argument from a chaotic clash of feelings into a structured discussion where your points carry weight, credibility, and authority. The moment you anchor your words in logic and facts, you separate yourself from the chaos of reactive debate and position yourself as a voice of reason which commands attention and respect. The first step in using facts and logic is preparation. You must know your subject inside and out, understand the topic thoroughly, anticipate common counterarguments, and gather credible evidence. The more informed you are, the less likely you are to be intimidated or misled. Preparation allows you to speak with authority, confidence, and precision, which in turn reduces the emotional volatility of both yourself and the other person. When facts are laid out clearly, arguments become about truth rather than opinion, and this shifts the dynamics of any debate. People instinctively respect someone who can present information accurately and calmly because truth backed by evidence is difficult to dispute. Logic is not merely presenting facts, It is about connecting facts in a way that forms a coherent, compelling argument. It requires critical thinking, analysis, and the ability to recognize cause and effect, patterns, and inconsistencies. A well-structured logical argument addresses the issue systematically, dismantles weaknesses in opposing points, and reinforces your position with clarity. When you use logic, you create a roadmap that guides the listener through your reasoning. This approach minimizes confusion, prevents emotional escalation, and strengthens the impact of your words. Logical reasoning also allows you to remain composed because it shifts the focus from who is louder or more emotional to who is correct, who has evidence, and who presents ideas most coherently. Facts serve as the pillars that support your logic. Credible data, statistics, quotes from experts, real-world examples, and verifiable sources reinforce your argument. When someone tries to attack your position emotionally, facts act as anchors, reminding both you and the other person that truth is objective and not dependent on mood, tone, or personal attack. Facts reduce the power of manipulation and speculation because they provide tangible evidence that cannot easily be disputed. They also provide a neutral ground, a shared reference point, where the discussion can remain rational even if emotions rise. Using facts and logic requires discipline. It is easy to be drawn into emotional traps, especially when someone uses insults, exaggerations, or provocations. But disciplined argumentation allows you to recognize these attempts and respond appropriately without getting derailed. For example, when faced with personal attacks, you can redirect the conversation toward the subject at hand, using logical connections and factual evidence to maintain control. This technique not only keeps the argument productive, but also demonstrates emotional intelligence, self-control, and maturity, which enhances your credibility. Clarity is another essential component. Facts and logic must be communicated clearly and effectively. Avoid convoluted explanations or overly complex language, because if your reasoning is lost in translation, your argument loses its power. Simplicity, precision, and conciseness make your point stronger, easier to follow, and harder to counter. When your logic is clear and your facts are indisputable, the argument shifts from a battle of voices to a demonstration of truth, and your confidence grows as a result. Another important aspect is anticipating emotional appeals from others. Many people rely on stories, exaggerations, or manipulative language to sway opinions. By responding with facts and logic, you neutralize these tactics. This does not mean dismissing emotion entirely, because humans are naturally influenced by stories and feelings, but it does mean prioritizing evidence over reaction. You can acknowledge emotion without letting it dictate the argument, and then gently guide the conversation back to objective truth. This approach keeps you in control and ensures your position remains unshakable. Facts and logic also protect you from overreacting. Emotional arguments often escalate because one or both parties respond impulsively to perceived slights. By grounding yourself in objective reasoning, you create a mental shield that prevents provocation from undermining your composure. You become less vulnerable to manipulation, more confident in your stance, and capable of articulating your perspective in a calm, persuasive manner. Over time, this method builds a reputation. People recognize that when you speak, it is with authority, insight, and credibility, not impulsivity or sentimentality. Using logic and facts effectively also involves timing and strategy. Dropping a powerful piece of evidence at the right moment, framing it within a logical progression, and connecting it to the overall point can have a dramatic impact. Strategic delivery maximizes the influence of your argument while minimizing opportunities for misinterpretation or emotional derailment. Observing the other person's responses, assessing their comprehension, and adjusting your approach accordingly ensures that your reasoning is not only sound but also persuasive. Critical thinking is an integral part of this skill. You must analyze both your own arguments and the opposing points to identify gaps, weaknesses, or inconsistencies. This process allows you to refine your position, strengthen your logic, and anticipate challenges. When you demonstrate that your reasoning has been carefully considered, that every point is supported by evidence, and that you understand the nuances of the subject, you create a presence of authority and intellect. People are less likely to attack or dismiss someone who has clearly done their homework and presents ideas in a structured, rational manner. Ultimately, using facts and logic over emotion is about control, credibility, and effectiveness. It transforms arguments from chaotic clashes into structured discussions where truth is the guiding principle, not reaction. It allows you to maintain composure, articulate your position persuasively, and influence others without resorting to aggression, manipulation, or drama. Those who master this approach can navigate any argument with confidence, assertiveness, and clarity because they are grounded in reality, fortified by evidence, and guided by reason rather than fleeting emotion. Facts and logic do not just strengthen your argument. They strengthen your presence, your authority, and your ability to defend yourself in any situation with honor, intelligence, and unwavering clarity.